everybody, my name is Lily and today I'm going to teach you about how to sail. So, have you ever looked out the ocean and wondered what it would be like to control and sail a boat just by using the wind? The sound of the waves, the flap of the sail, and the boat moving smoothly across the water. It feels like total freedom in my opinion. When I first started learning how to sail, I thought it was just about steering a boat. But it's actually a lot more. It's learning how to use the wind, stay calm under pressure, and be patient. So today I'm gonna try my best to explain to you what sailing is really like. I'm gonna talk about how sailing works, the basics of sailing, the safety, and most of all, being patient. And honestly, that just sums up the most important parts of being out on the water because not only is sailing calm and freeing, but it's also dangerous. So before you can sail, you really have to learn how the boat moves. And according to Emily Johnson's journal, How Wind Affects Sailing and Boat Control from the Mariner's Journal, wind is what makes the boat go. The sail kind of acts like an airplane wing. It fills up with air, kind of sits in the belly of the boat, not the boat, the sail. And what you use to steer is called a tiller or a rudder, and that is basically what keeps the boat balanced and what keeps the boat from not tipping over. Now, in Michael Brown's book of Sailing Basics, A Beginner's Guide to Sailing, um, it teaches you how the wind and the sails and the rudder work all together and how you start to feel the wind instead of it fighting you. And you can tell where it's coming from by either the water, like the ripples on the surface, or the wind on your face, and that is what we call apparent wind. So once you understand how the boat works, it's time to learn to control it. Now, learning to sail obviously takes practice and patience. You're not going to get it on your first try. And that's why I like to reference Laura Smith's article, Learning to Sail Tips for Beginner Sailors. So, from that, it explains that beginners should start on calm waters. You don't want to start on 15-mile-per-hour winds where you could possibly turn over and be in an emergency situation. Now, there are protocols for that, but today we're going to learn how to take your time, take all the patience you need, and start on calm waters. So once you do that, you're going to practice your tacking and jibing. Those are turns that help you change direction based off the wind, and it teaches you how to do them safely, most importantly. You also have to learn how to trim the sails, that's basically pulling in the main line or letting the main line out to lose the wind and go a little bit slower depending on the wind. And then you obviously steer with the tiller or the wheel. Most of the time it is a tiller and it is a rod that's kind of hangs behind you. And once you have all of that working on the boat and you have calm winds, then you start moving forward. Michael Brown also gives you tips on how to dock the boat safely and communicate with your crew. Because sailing isn't just about one person, it's about teamwork and timing. And you never want to sail alone, especially if in your boat that has two people. If you have two people, you usually have two different sails and those do different things. But even with all the skill and all the practice, there's one thing that matters the most, and that is staying safe. Robert Davis, in his book, Safety on the Waters, Sailing Rules and Tips, says that safety should always come first. You should always wear a life jacket or a PFD, personal flotation device. Check the weather, check land markers, make sure there's clear, calm waters, there isn't a lot of traffic. When you go out, always bring the right gear, like a first aid kit. On my hand right now is a glove to protect my hands from the sun. It also has padding right here and padding up here to protect my hand from the ropes that you have to hold on to. Another thing that you can also bring out in the water that I have is a dry bag to where you can put that first aid kit and any other thing you might need. For example, I have duct tape. Duct tape, you know, you never know what's going to happen on the water. You want to be safe, obviously. Another thing that I wouldn't really bring, but it's also just good to have when you are learning how to sail, is books, like on how to tie a knot. And for example, this one is knotting, splicing, and rope work. I have both of these. They're great references if you ever want to sail. This one is by Harvey Garrett Smith, and this one is by Randy Penn. You don't have to get those, but it's just obviously a great resource to have. I also have a dry bag that I made. You don't, obviously yours doesn't have to look like this, but it ties right here, and in doing so, closes the bag, and then you can just set it in the cockpit with your dry bag and any other resources that you need. Because even small mistakes can be dangerous if the weather changes suddenly, and that's why experienced sailors are always prepared, like myself. Davis not only says that, but he also reminds readers that the best way to stay safe and to stay calm is to pay attention to your surroundings. Sailing also teaches respect for nature. You know, you never want to destroy anything while you're out on the water. You will always want to pay attention to other people. There are certain things called like rules of the road that you have to follow just to obtain your sailing license, but that is a whole other thing. And for this sake, we're not really going to go over that. But for your own limits, you should learn to trust yourself, read the signs on the water, don't mind that, and take the risk, and don't take risks for anything that you are not ready for. So, I talked about how sailing works, the main skills sailors use, and most importantly, the safety and patience on the water. Because learning to sail isn't just about boats and wind. It's about focus, teamwork, and confidence. And it teaches you to be patient, adapt, and to enjoy the moment because sailing is so much fun. I have so much fun, and I want everyone else to have so much fun, but in a safe and practiced manner. So, I have a sailing, not a say, a sailing, a saying that I think sums it up perfectly, and that is, you can't control the wind, but you can always adjust your sails. And if you ever get the chance to try sailing, you might just find that being on the water helps you not only be balanced on a boat, but also find balance in life. Now, I would like to thank Michael Brown, Sailing Basics, A Beginner's Guide, Robert Davis, Safety on the Water, Sailing Rules and Tips, and Emily Johnson, How Wind Affects Sailing and Boat Changes. And finally, Laura Smith, Learning to Sail, Tips for First-Time Sailors. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this helps. Bye-bye.